Hi, this is Christine Beadsworth, and this message is called Pre-Fight Checks and Balances. It's part 1 of the message, and you can find both messages on my Fresh Oil Releases website. In the first week of July, I had a dream in which I was invited to a friend's house for dinner. The house was situated on top of a mountain and had many full-length windows. It was nighttime, and they were expecting more guests. My friend was distressed because large cracks kept appearing in the ground of the front garden. She kept going outside and raking over the crevices so it wouldn't distress the guests when they arrived. There seemed to be some sort of shaking going on. I suggested to her to just leave it until the morning because it was going to keep happening all night long, and her raking wasn't achieving anything. Then we were told that she and her husband had paid for me and my husband to go to Switzerland with them. There would be an evening meal beforehand. Going into the kitchen, I saw a large glass bowl with salad in it. I began to scoop up grated onion from the chopping board and put it into my handbag, as I knew there would be a need for food along the journey, and then I realized that it would be better to put the onion in a Ziploc bag to preserve it until later. Just then, a large plane landed on the lawn. I had been allocated a single seat on my own, away from my husband's seat because we were last-minute bookings on this flight to Switzerland. My seat was by itself, and it was facing so that I could see out of the right-hand windows of the plane, and it was at right angles to all the other rows of seats. I could see another plane flying way back, almost out of sight, like it was waiting for this one to take off. There was also a concert pianist on board, and she was seated at a shiny black concert piano in the center of the plane. I was told that my piano was the old one, just behind hers, situated at a lower level. As I went over to look at it, she peered arrogantly at it and made a remark, indicating it was clearly inferior. It was an upright, ancient piano with very worn ivories and a peeling facade. Now I want to share the understanding for this portion of the dream before I carry on. The house situated on top of the mountain with large windows indicates a watchman position, and the darkness had already fallen by the time we arrived for the evening meal. Cracks appearing in the ground indicate continual seismic activity and an impending large earthquake. This may be an indication of the timing of this unfolding of the stream during constant seismic activity, or it could indicate a shaking in the spiritual realm, or both. In real life, this couple has actually just completed and moved to their own end-time refuge in a mountainous region of South Africa. The fact that they had paid for our tickets indicates that there are a company of forerunner watchmen who have paid the price and done the necessary spiritual preparation for others to be equipped and carried to a place of safety without cost to themselves. Switzerland represents a place of immunity and safety. This nation did not take sides during the world wars and is known to be a place of financial and physical security during a time of war. Regarding the onions, what stood out for me is that they were already prepared, and whoever had done so would have done quite a bit of weeping while grating them. Onions are full of vitamin C, or vitamin SEE. They represent the revelation light imparted during a season of weeping, which was both preserved and carried onto the plane for the next leg of the journey in order to bring nourishment to the passengers. So I want to say to you, beloved, that you may have been through a very hard season in the year 5780. It may have been exceedingly difficult, and you may have done a lot of weeping. But the revelation you received during that time is going to be food and drink for others in the next season. So carry it with you. Don't discard it as wanting to forget what lies behind and press forward to lies ahead. We forget the weeping, but we don't forget the revelation that we received during that time. I was also given the understanding that the two pianos represented the prophetic realm in the midst of this body of passengers. One was considered professional, well-known, skilled, and there to entertain the passengers. I, on the other hand, represent the unknown prophets, those without large recognized ministries, who in the eyes of the professional circuit are relegated to an inferior position, as their sound is unknown and couldn't possibly be as good as the professional trained ones. It was definitely on a lower level in the hierarchy that existed amongst this company of people. What came to mind as I pondered this in the dream are the recent warning videos of Pastor Dana Coverstone, which have been very widely circulated, but which have been vilified by the so-called professional company of prophets presently parading on the ministry stage. And many of them contribute to the Elijah list. It also seemed in the dream that this woman pianist in her sparkling black evening dress was the organized entertainment, providing the official music and playlist for the flight. However, it seemed that God had other plans because another piano had been provided for the unknown prophets. I asked the Lord what the plane represented, and he said, "This is the two wings of a great eagle provided to take my bride to her appointed place of safety." You find that in Revelation 12. And I asked him, "Why is my seat at right angles to the rest of the seats in the plane?" And he answered, "Because I am giving you a view that others don't have, the flank view. You can see what is in their blind spots. You can see the enemy sneaking up on the flank to take them out." Now in Wikipedia, flanking in a battle is well known in army circles. Flanking is useful because a force's offensive power is concentrated in its front. A flanking maneuver uses the troops' forward movement to create an attackable flank. A psychological advantage may also be present. The confusion and threat from multiple directions can often cause shock and panic. This may cause soldiers to run from the battle. A larger-scaled tactical flanking is called a strategic flanking. The flank attack is also the marketing strategy adopted by the challenging firm and is intended to attack at the weak points and blind spots of the competitor. Don't we just see this happening in the run-up to the American elections, the flank attack? Then the Lord continued, "There are some who consider themselves trained professionals in the spirit. They consider their skill at releasing sound far too superior to others. But I use the weak and the lowly things, the despised things, to confound the wise. I will give you a word to release on the sin of pride amongst my bride, and it will put things in a spin, and some will be flung out of their chosen seats in the center of what I am doing." "Thank you, Lord," I said, "but how will they be removed? You can't get out of a plane when it's in the air." "The plane has not taken off yet, daughter. I have given you foresight to see the plan of the enemy once this plane has ascended and is moving in heavenly realms. This is my last checkpoint before takeoff." And I understood that part of this planned attack included installing the professional pianist on the plane in order to entertain and subject her captive audience to sound other than that which heaven desires them to hear. I saw the plane start to spin around and around from the central point where the two pianos were situated. It turned into a centrifuge, spinning very fast. This motion was causing a separation between particles of different weights, with the smallest ones remaining near the center point. The largest, heaviest ones moved towards the outside perimeter. Then I was shown a white strip with holes of different sizes cut into its length, and a hand was taking each separated particle and sizing it by trying to put it through the smallest hole on the strip. First, I heard, too big, too big, too big, just right, as the right size to pass the particle through was finally found. Each particle was matched to its portal. Then the Lord said, "Some are too big in their own eyes. They magnify their importance in my whole plan. By doing this, they minimize the greatness of my grace in using them. And they look down on other men and women in my body." Nebuchadnezzar suffered from the sin of pride, and as a result he was appointed 7 years of humbling. I have no use for such as these in this season. Then a giant pair of scissors appeared and cut off the biggest hole on the white sizing strip. As this happened, I saw the interior of the plane again. Stewards and stewardesses were going to certain seats in the plane and telling the people they were sitting in the wrong seat. The people protested and held out their boarding passes, and I could see capital A, capital A, capital A, like AAA, and the row number was on every person's boarding pass who was being asked to move. I knew that these were the seats they had chosen and booked for themselves when they checked in online for this flight. They considered themselves worthy of AAA seats. In some cases, there was yelling and fighting about being moved, and security officers appeared out of nowhere and removed them forcefully from their seats. I saw them being marched to the back of the plane next to the toilets. Then I could see new people were being brought onto the plane and placed in the vacated seats. All of these boarding passes said ZZZ. And I heard, "Did I not say the first shall be last, and the last shall be first?" I looked at the people who had been moved to the back. They were sitting jam-packed in very narrow seats, about 6 in a row, and some began to peck at each other like crows to get more space to move. Others just sat with their heads hanging down, looking sheepish, as if they knew that this was really where they belonged. The stewards just watched their behavior for a while. Then suddenly they stepped forward and grabbed the ones arguing and demanding better seats by their collars. They opened the exit door and tossed them onto the tarmac, and the door closed with a bang. Then I heard the scripture about the angels separating the tares into bundles and tossing them into the fire. And I was given understanding that this whole scene of moving and demotion had been in order to reveal the true hearts of these people. Before, they had been quietly sitting in their seats waiting for takeoff, and everybody looked basically the same, very well behaved and friendly. The whole scenario was a bit shocking to watch, and the whole process didn't take long. I looked out of the window of the plane after the squabbling, displeased ones were removed from the plane, and there I saw the woman pianist. She was in disarray on the tarmac, with her stiletto heels in the air. She sat up and glared at the plane and its passengers, and I was given a close-up of her eyes. They were vicious, with slit pupils like a cat or a snake, and I could see deep darkness, rage and hatred at being removed from her position in the midst of the bridal company. She shook her fist in the air at the plane, and then got up and stalked off to another plane hiding in the shadows and climbed into the pilot's seat. This plane was a sleek black fighter jet, and in the hold of the plane I saw many demons. And I knew this was the plane I had been shown while sitting in the flank-positioned seat. It was coming to launch an attack on the bridal company as soon as it took off to the appointed place of safety. And the Lord said, "Thus will I sift, expose, and remove Jezebel from the midst of my bridal company." And I was reminded of Elijah in his confrontation with the prophets of Baal, and the difference between the true prophet and the false had been openly displayed before the people, and then the prophets of Baal removed from the landscape. And Jezebel had threatened to kill Elijah as a result. Next section I've titled Separating Garment from Garment. In this section of the vision, I was shown a different scene. I saw a simple experiment which I had done in science class at school. A piece of filter paper was laid on the table, and a large purple dot was drawn in the center with a felt tip marker. And then a big drop of water was placed by an eyedropper on the purple dot. Slowly the water crept towards the edges of the filter paper, carrying with it particles of different color dye. It was revealing the true color content which had been concealed inside the overall purple-colored dot. In the end, there were concentric rings of different colors, and right at the outer edges was a ring of gray concentrating into black. This was at the same position as the largest, heaviest particles in the spinning centrifuge in the earlier vision. Then the Lord spoke again. This is the company of those who are presently robed in purple garments and carry spiritual authority and positions of kingship in the body. Some are anointed and appointed by heaven, and others, like Athaliah, have taken the throne and the royal garments by murderous intrigue. I will sift and expose their hearts, and separate between sheep and sheep. I will expose their true colors. I will remove those who seek rule and elevation and stations of power and adulation of man. And I will introduce my Joash company, the hidden ones kept for such a time as this. I will remove kings and I will set up kings. I will remove seasoned ones who say, my experience counts. I have pedigree for power. I will replace them with my righteous remnant, who has survived their murderous schemes by hiding. And then I was given understanding that the ZZZ on the boarding passes of those newly introduced to the plane represented Sadiq, which means righteous, righteous, righteous. And I knew that these ones signified a Melchizedek priesthood of righteous kings being unveiled in the midst of the bridal company after the sifting. And part 2 will follow on in the next podcast. May the Lord add understanding to what I've shared. May He give you a clarity about how it fits in with what He's been showing you. And may He bring you to be part of the company that has a seat amongst the bridal company that are carried by the 2 wings of the giant eagle to the place prepared.